Greetings, fellow thinkers and drinkers and connoisseurs of music. Fine. Belated happy 80th birthday to Ian Gillan, who is the subject of today's video. Yeah, I know it was last month. I'm not exactly quick off the mark on this one, but I've seen a few other videos out there paying tribute even to him and his now through what is it? This must be 60 years as a career as a professional musician. Not bad going. So I thought, well, yes, why not? And I thought that primarily because, Ian always has been my favorite rock vocalist. Well, my favorite vocalist, I could say. At his best, I found him to be peerless. Perhaps some criticism of him is due for his not taking care of his voice, particularly over this 60-year career. And he did go through some rough patches. But basically, his breadth of style and his vocal range and just everything about his performance is, in my opinion, unsurpassed. We all know he can scream. We all know about his power. But my tribute, I suppose, it's going to take a slightly different approach. I've picked 10 songs, not that easy to whittle it down to 10, I have to say. But I'm focusing more on perhaps a lesser displayed side of his character, his vocal character. Perhaps focusing more on his subtlety, his range, his emotional conveyance. As I said, this was incredibly difficult to reduce to 10. The other, perhaps, difference between my list, shall we say, and the majority of the others that I've seen is I've opted for a road less traveled and perhaps gone for more deeper cuts. Anyway, we will see. We will see. My first offering, I'm going to try and do these, I think, in chronological order. Seems as logical as anything. Is from the Concerto from Group and Orchestra in 1969. Or better said, the subsequent live album. He had recorded before, with episode 6 at the very least. But for many, this would have been the first time the first opportunity they would have had to hear Ian Gillan on a record. Although probably, I don't think it sold particularly well, did it? But certainly, it was released before in rock. We all know the backstory to this. His lack of enthusiasm for the project, perhaps thinking it was a conflict of interest. It was recorded in September. He'd only joined the band in early July. So what is going on here? Well, he's documented all that himself. Perhaps, he felt a little intimidated, perhaps, by the prospect of singing in front of an orchestra like that. I don't know. Certainly, he was a bit, shall we say, less than cooperative when it came to writing the lyrics. We all know the story. He did it, eventually managed to do it on a napkin in an Italian restaurant on the afternoon of the first rehearsal. Unduly last minute. Yet, having said that, his words are utterly sublime, and they perfectly encapsulate what one has to assume were his uncertainties. Just the line, "How shall I know when to start singing my song?" Yeah, I think that says it all. And his lyrics are absolutely, they're inspired on this. And in terms of his singing, he navigates John Lord's, as he composed it, orchestral textures with such precision, bringing the rock intensity, but never overwhelms, does it? Because, as we know, the second movement is the quietest, the most reflective of the three. His phrasing is expressive, it's fluid. His timbre is warm, it's cutting when it needs to be. It perfectly balances drama and subtlety, even in passages which is far from the usual hard rock territory or what we would come to associate with him. It's just so effortless for him, isn't it? It's so effortlessly, and when he needs to drop his voice down, it's also effortless. And I think this just proves, his talent. When you take this and just listen to In Rock, that came out less than a year later. Well, he's covered, the extremes of the spectrum, hasn't he? But this is quite simply sublime. It is a vocal tour de force. I'm going to move on. I'm going to skip over the first 3 Deep Purple studio recordings. By the time they go to Who Do We Think We Are, well, we are talking about Gillan here, having revolutionized rock singing on the previous 3 Deep Purple releases. He decided to take a slightly different approach, and this works because the band were, perhaps some of them, more reluctant than others, but were exploring new material, new ideas, new challenges, new musical territory. And nothing encapsulates this better than Our Lady. Not a traditional rock song construction by any means. It's dominated by Lord. Blackmore is in the background, shall we say. Not often that happens. But Gillan delivers one of his most understated and haunting performances. There's nothing of the trademark screams going back to Speaking, Child in Time, anything like that. Instead, his voice, it just floats with a restrained, almost hymn-like quality, which perfectly matches the song's solemn, church organ almost backdrop. The gentle rise and fall of his phrasing conveys both a fragility and a quiet strength, reflecting the lyrics and showing a side of his artistry, perhaps, that was not, perhaps had not been heard in Deep Purple context thus far. This is absolutely outstanding vocal performance on an album that's very, very overlooked, and very unfairly so. Well, his departure from Deep Purple, as we know, took him out of the music business for a couple of years, and his initial forays to re-engage were sporadic and slightly offbeat, shall we say. I offer as evidence for this the Cher Kazoo CD, which we're not here to discuss. However, there is one song on there which I think cannot be excluded from this list. And it's actually on there 3 times, Driving Me Wild. They're all slightly different. I'm nominating Take One. They have slightly different vocal approaches and different arrangements, but I am, in terms of the superior vocal performance, I'm nominating Take One, which he sings with it's almost a carefree buoyancy, really, isn't it? His phrasing is light and playful, which is perfectly in step with the whimsical spirit of the project, I guess. There's almost a childlike exuberance to this. To his delivery, at least, and yet it's still shaped. It's still cohesive. It's still very precise, and it manages to give both charm and polish at the same time. And Gillan in rare form, I think, relaxed, witty, but full of character, a trademark of his voice. I'm going to skip forward a few more years for my next offering, which is taken from the Gillan Band's Future Shock album in 1981. And this, as much as any other song recorded by the Gillan Band, to me is just indicative of why they were simply the best and most creative of the 3 main Deep Purple splinter groups. That would be Rainbow, Whitesnake and Gillan of the 70s. The song in question, probably not surprising to anybody, will be If I Sing Softly, where it unveils a tender, almost confessional side to his voice, sets aside the thunderous power and for more intimate delivery, colouring melody with warmth, vulnerability. builds gently from the almost whispered verses, but so effortlessly it lifts the power for the chorus, while still conveying this a wonderful emotion to this to this vocal. Again, it's an absolutely complete performance. It really is. Yeah, it's even at his softest, and it doesn't go from right to the top of his range or anything on this, but the musical drama is there, very apparent in his vocal delivery. It's got a considerable, commanding, emotional pull. It really does. Right, I'm going to skip forward another couple of albums for a song that didn't actually make the album. It was either an outtake or it was a B-side of a single. I'm afraid I can't remember exactly which it was. Track in question is Fiji. This is a wonderful song. It really is. A haunting, hypnotic earworm. It's a real overlooked gem. Again, he softens his delivery somewhat, but his vocal has a dreamlike, almost wistful tone that drifts over the song's exotic South Sea Island atmosphere. You can feel it. You can hear it almost. His voice carries a sense of longing and escape. Combining warmth and vulnerability, I think. It's not an aggressive lyric, nor is it an outright ballad. But again, he hits exactly the right tone, as he so often did. It's one of his most evocative performances, I think. And this one really, as much as anything, paints pictures in your mind. His next recorded project was Born Again with Black Sabbath. Many decry this, both the album and his participation. I am not one of them. I thought, and I still do, that he gave an absolutely immense vocal performance on what is a truly remarkable album. However, I haven't gone for the obvious choices here. I've gone for Keep It Warm, where his voice takes on an aching, almost conversational intimacy, perhaps, is what I'm looking for. It's a striking contrast to the rest of the album's very dark and heavy and brooding, menacing tones. He delivers the verses with tenderness and restraint and lifts into the chorus with a raw, heartfelt urgency. We all know the lyric, the meaning behind the lyrics. Recently got involved with a lady who'd go on to be his wife. And how he was missing her when going out on tour, that sort of thing. Again, this might be a cheesy lyric, or a cheesy subject, or a trope. But he rises above that. It's one of his most personal performances, I think. You can hear the intertwined vulnerability and strength. It really, really is an exceptional vocal. And it creates a deeply human moment in the Sabbath canon. I'm going to move on to the House of Blue Light. Another much underrated album. But for this list, I've gone for The Spanish Archer, which is the most out-and-out rock song on my list. And again, I just have to say, with the recent penchant for remixing everything, Deep Purple, this is the one album that really, really cries out for a remix. But that's another conversation. We know the song. It's a loose jam, but rocking. It drives and features some amazing contributions from Blackmore. But it's Gillan we're here to talk about. And again, some excellent lyrics. What we're talking about, the breakup of a relationship, his faltering relationship with Blackmore. It could be. It's not abstract, though, I don't think. And while this subject may be seen as a trope, Gillan avoids cliché. And they're really intelligent and witty and well crafted and constructed lyrics. And his vocal delivery reinforces this superbly. There's power, there's regret, there's frustration, there's raw emotion. There's not a hint of the sickly melodramatic vocals often associated with this type of lyric. You can also say he's having a lot of fun with it. Why they never played this live, I never know. It was just crying out to be played on stage, but never mind. But vocally, he's treading a fine line here between the having the fun here and conveying the the emotional message of the lyric, and that's a talent not given to everybody. What's also noticeable here is how much better, stronger, fuller his voice sounds vis-a-vis the Perfect Strangers record. He still sounded like his classic 70s self on Born Again. He didn't on Perfect Strangers. Now, this is not the place to get into the background to that, but his voice recovered considerably on the House of Blue Light, and I don't think there's any better example than the Spanish Archer. A year later, frustrated with the process of writing and recording the House of Blue Light, Gillan and Glover released Accidentally on Purpose. Songs that he described as at the time of just having their own value, free from the weight of expectation that comes associated with the Deep Purple name. The selection here is She Took My Breath Away. It's a really smooth, playful vocal delivery. It's got a hint of soulful warmth to it, I suppose. That's what I'm trying to say. That perfectly matches the song's, breezy, jazz-inflected groove. It's not much of an instrumental. Really isn't. It is his vocal that carries the song. But he leans into the lighter phrasing with absolute effortless charm, showing a gift for very subtle nuance, good rhythmic feel. As I said, it really is his vocal that carries this. He's very relaxed, incredibly stylish, proving he could captivate even outside, and well outside, the genre of which he is best associated. Once he was ousted from Deep Purple, his first solo effort was Naked Thunder, which is a really good record, but it was a bit safe, I always thought, at the time, both in terms of songwriting, performance, and most certainly production. The closest he ever got, in my opinion, to anything remotely resembling an AOR album. On paper, this could really have, especially when we're going to look at one of the softer songs from said album, and with this background, this could easily have crossed the line, shall we say. The track in question is Loving on Borrowed Time, and whatever one may think of it as a song, again, it is an outstanding vocal from Gillan. He puts a deep, soulful ache into every line. His voice moves from tender reflection in the verses to his emotions in the chorus. It's both intimacy and grandeur at the same time. Not easy to do, I don't think. It's a perfectly balanced vocal. You've got the raw vulnerability, you have the trademark power. It's not the typical vocal that this sort of track would have received. Imagine Joe Lynn Turner singing it. He would not have sung it like this. And lastly, I'm going to move on to Abandon. For me, one of the standout tracks, Fingers to the Bone. An interesting lyric again here. Was he reflecting back on late 1992 when he had to disband his solo effort, as he was effectively compelled to rejoin Deep Purple for financial, if not exactly for artistic reasons at the time? These are biting lyrics. One senses regret and frustration, anger even. But again, he deals with it. There's no hint of bitterness in it. But it's his voice. It's the actual performance of it that really stands out for me. It carries a raw blues-soaked grit that perfectly fits the song and certainly fits the lyrical theme. He delivers the verses with a storyteller's edge, half sung, half spoken, perhaps, before opening into a rough-hewn chorus that brims with urgency. Well, not so much with urgency, but just with this conviction. You know this means something to him, and he achieves all this without screaming at the top of his lungs. It comes from the emotion he conveys is coming from within somehow. It's we're long into his career by this point, but certainly a sign of maturity. It really is, for me, a standout performance. And I'm going to add a honourable mention, just because I can. Slightly off topic, but take any bootleg you can find, or perhaps the one official release on the one of the Born Again remasters, and just listen to any version Black Sabbath did with Gillan of their song Black Sabbath. Nobody ever sang that better. Ozzy never did. Dio most certainly didn't. Wow, it is just amazing. Well, that's that. Yes, I'm sure some people are wondering why has he not mentioned Child in Time, Speed King, Pictures of Home, or even Fighting Man, or Five Moons. Wow, how did I not get 5 moons into that? That's a good question. I suppose because I limited myself to 10. So this could have been a very long video. Well, plenty of other people have covered these songs when they've been giving their retrospectives. So I don't feel there was any particular value in me just repeating that. I tried to go for something a little different and try to showcase perhaps a different side to Ian as a singer. And it's part of his appeal has always been this virtuosity, if you like, versatility that he can convince in just about any genre he's presented with. What I am conscious of is simply the as I alluded to, the vast array of songs that I have omitted. This could have been a very, very long video. And just because I stopped with Fingers to the Bone, don't think I am being dismissive of any of his subsequent performances. There are many, many great ones, more than worthy of inclusion. And I may get round to that at some later date, how he's adapted his voice in his later career. He can't sing as he did in 1970. But he's compensated for that. And that's maybe the subject of another video. Well, anyway, until then, that is my take. Those are my offering for 10 of Ian Gillan's finest vocal performances. Let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, all those good things. And once again, I thank you for your indulgence. I wish you well, and until next time, Maçhonquèrre.